This is an advertisement by BetterHelp. January arrives with a sense of expectation and change. But real change is rarely loud or dramatic.
It's noticing what no longer needs to be there. Thoughts you keep turning over even when they're not helping.
And when you live with those long enough, they can start to feel normal until you pause and see them more clearly. That's where perspective helps. Not fixing yourself, just creating space to understand what's been weighing you down.
Therapy can offer that space, a clearer view of your own patterns and what's worth holding on to. BetterHelp makes starting straightforward. You answer a few questions and they match you with a qualified therapist. If it doesn't feel right, you can switch at any time.
Whether you're into New Year's resolutions or not, working to better yourself is something everyone should do. And you don't even need to bulldoze your life to do it. Simply use BetterHelp.
BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/restishistory. That's betterhelp.com/restishistory.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Car shopping shouldn't feel like preparing for a marathon of paperwork. That's why Carvana makes buying and financing your car easy. From start to finish, search thousands of vehicles with great prices. All online, all on your time. And when you're ready, your new car shows up right at your door. It doesn't get better than that. Buy your car the easy way. On Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
In the summer of 1914, as the Russian Empire was preparing to go to war, a Siberian peasant called Grigori Rasputin wrote to Nicholas II, the Tsar of all the Russians. "I know they all want war from you," Rasputin wrote, evidently not realizing that this means ruin. Hard is God's punishment when he takes away reason. It's the beginning of the end. You are the Tsar, father of the people. Don't allow the madmen to triumph and destroy themselves and the people. Yes, they'll conquer Germany, but what of Russia? If one thinks, then truly never for all of time has one suffered like Russia, drowned in her own blood. Great will be the ruin, grief without end. Grigori. And Dominic, that is an amazing letter, is it not? I mean, it is kind of properly prophetic.
It is very prescient. It's survived. It's extraordinary that it survived. Nicholas must have kept it with him after he went into captivity, which is extraordinary. But the fact that it's being sent by a peasant to the autocrat of all the Russias, this guy who thinks he's basically, who's the last sort of absolute monarch in Europe, ordained by God. And he's getting advice from this sort of bedraggled, from this peasant, this relatively uneducated.
And this peasant is at the heart of great events. So the descent of Europe into war, Russia's role in it, in the long run, the Russian Revolution. So today's episode is focused on Rasputin, a figure of enormous kind of historical fascination. And we've had a lot of questions about him.
Yes.
And I would say the overwhelming tenor of those questions, well, I'll read one from Benjamin Bitten, who I'll quote, "Is it true that when his drinking and lusting and his hunger for power became known to more and more people, the demands to do something about this outrageous man became louder and louder." The words there, of course, not only from Benjamin Bitten, but from Boney M, whose Rasputin has been name-checked so many times.
Yeah. Most people will know him through Boney M, won't they? More than through history books or anything like that.
So was he the lover of the Russian Queen? I mean, that's
before we get onto that, Tom,
yes.
I have an exciting announcement for our listeners.
Do you?
So, we've been going for more than a year, just over a year, I think. And we've been thrilled, haven't we, by the reaction from people listening to the podcast. So thrilled, in fact, that we've decided to set up our own community, our own club, the Rest is History Club. Do you want to tell people about that?
You can listen to every episode, including the archive, without ads.
I know, because the ads some people don't care for some of your ads, I think it's fair to say.
I think you.
I'm thinking of one in particular. I don't want to put off that mental health charity from investing again in our show.
Yeah, but you going on about Tiny Tom. I mean, that joke was funny the first 100 times. But if you want to get rid of that, you can sign up to this and you'll get every episode ad-free. You will also get an extra episode every week, the content of which will be led by you, the listeners. So we will, if you've got views on the episodes that you've heard, if you want to carry on the conversation, let us know and we will kind of go over that.
That's right.
And if you sign up now, you will find the first of these episodes is up right now, and there'll be a preview out tomorrow
on the main feed. So even if you don't sign up, you'll get a preview of that bonus episode.
And Dominic, what is that episode on?
Aptly, it's on history's greatest clubs. So the Kit Kat Club, the Hellfire Club, a gentleman's club that I believe a member of the Rest is History team is a member of.
And now the Rest is History Club.
And the Rest is History Club.
So that's great. And also we will be doing a live streamed episode once every month.
For club members, yeah.
And the first one will be next week, so Wednesday the 15th of December. And we'll be doing that on the 60s, the 1960s. So you can watch and you can contribute to the episode.
You can send an abuse while we're recording it, which will be exciting for you.
Kind of laugh at Dominic while you're doing it. And also there is a chat room community called Discord, which just, it seems absolutely perfect. So you can join that and we will be discussing episodes, taking suggestions, and giving reading lists, won't we?
Yeah. It says here sharing historical memes. Will you be doing that, Tom?
We're not going to be doing that. No, we're not going to, because I'm not. I'm over 50. It's far too.
Yeah. If you start posting GIFs or whatever, I should be very disappointed in you.
I occasionally post a GIF, but not a meme.
Right.
So that's part of it as well. And there are other benefits as well. And how do you sign up to this incredible offer? When you go to restishistorypod.com, restishistorypod.com, or you can click on the link in the show notes.
So it's really simple, actually. It's very simple. It lives in whatever podcast app you normally use, it says here.
I love hearing you say that.
It takes you 30 seconds to sign up. Not even 30 seconds, actually, because I've done it. And it took about 5 seconds.
So I'm afraid you do actually have to pay for this. But it's absolute bargain, isn't it, Dominic? It's a bargain. A bargain. £6 a month.
£6 a month. So that's maybe less than £2 a week. Now, the important thing to say is that if you don't care for, you're unclubbable, and you don't want to join and you want to carry on listening for free, then you just carry on listening as normal. Nothing has changed. You're just missing out on the live stream, the bonus episode, the chance to see Tom Holland's memes, all that stuff. But
although the positive is that you'll hear my adverts for mental health. So it swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, it is.
Ups and downs.
It's win-win.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah,
you do. Right. Okay. So that's enough. That's enough self-promotion. Yes. So that basically the Boney M, lover of the Russian Queen.
Yeah,
that's his reputation.
It's all. Well, we'll unpack all this. So, should we start by talking about who Rasputin is? So he's born in 1869. He's Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin, and he comes from a place called Pokrovskoye in just over the Urals in Siberia, an absolute kind of flea-bitten, kind of down at heel kind of village in the middle of nowhere.
But free, isn't it? So Siberia is free. Once you go across the Urals, you're no longer a serf.
Exactly. So people have gone there. His family, I think, gone there in the 17th century, is it?
Yes, 1643 they settled.
Good knowledge. So the year after the outbreak of the Civil War.
That's how I remembered it.
So they've been there all this time and they've done nothing. They've left no mark in history. They have this odd name. So what English sort of speakers won't get is that Rasputin, the surname, it's a bit like being called Mr. Rascal or something, isn't it? Because our Rasputnik is a sort of ne'er-do-well, or there's something to do with the crossroads that I don't fully understand. But basically the name is sort of a loaded name. You know, it's clearly a kind of a name from the lower orders and a sort of scruffy ne'er-do-wells kind of name.
But isn't that? I mean, I've often read this about the settlement of Siberia, that it's kind of like Russia's Wild West. I suppose it's the Wild East. Isn't
I think
it?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
And so the kind of the hint of the frontiers,man.
Absolutely. And it's got something a bit more than the American frontier, I think, because there is this hint of, something that dogs Rasputin throughout his life is this stuff about religious sectarianism and heresy. So there was this sense, if you're in St. Petersburg particularly, or Moscow, I suppose, that out there on the Siberian frontier are all kinds of weird sects, and they're worshipping devils and all this sort of stuff.
But also the converse of that somehow you are close to God out there.
Yeah.
So if Rasputin's name has the kind of the slight hint of the sinister about it, his first name, Grigori, he's named after Gregory of Nyssa, who is one of the great saints of 4th century Byzantium. He's actually, I mean, interesting in the context of serfdom, he's the church father who first argues that that slavery as an institution is unacceptable to God. And so it's this kind of strange mix of the kind of the rascally, the kind of frontiersman with the very holy. And the question of whether Rasputin is a genuine holy man or whether he's a kind of sinister fraud, of course, is the great question that comes to royal Russia and continues to kind of perplex historians to this day.
But the funny thing about him is that we know so little, isn't it? So that there are lots of things written about his earlier. So, for example, there's a claim about him as a young man that he was a horse thief, and that the other villagers were cross with him being a horse thief, and they threw him down on the ground. Did you see this? They threw him down on the ground so violently that he fell on his genitals, and from that point onwards suffered from terrible priapism. So he had a permanent erection. This is totally untrue. Appears to be utterly untrue. In fact, we know nothing at all about... Sorry, go on.
What about his penis?
No, we'll come to that later, because that will play...
Well, we do know about his penis, don't we?
Yeah, we know that there's nothing very interesting about it.
Well, apparently it was quite dark. It was quite dark brown.
Yes, I heard...
But it wasn't particularly long.
Is it dark brown? Or I thought the guy was saying the rest of him was dark brown, but his member wasn't. Anyway.
Maybe. Well, anyway, it
the
has an interesting colouring, let's say that. But it's not particularly long and it's not permanently erect.
No. So he's there in this village. He's a peasant. He marries a peasant woman called Praskovia, and they have 3 children. So he's got an absolutely standard life. And then he clearly has, in 1897 or so, when he's just late 20s, coming up to 30, he has some sort of breakdown, doesn't he?
Well, I guess on the kind of the measure of the Russian peasantry, it's a midlife crisis.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. He just thinks, God, this is awful. I'm going to go on a pilgrimage. So he wants to there are these people called the Straniki. So he wants to be a Stranik, which means he's going to go off and he's going to commune with nature and with God, and he will wander about the countryside.
Wearing chains, right?
Yes, he wears fetters at first. So this is very kind of, it's very kind of Byzantine behavior, isn't it? You can imagine somebody doing this in Syria.
Kind of holy fool.
Exactly. This is what he does. And he pitches up at a place called Verkhoturya in the Urals, which is a monastery. And this is a place where there's lots of elders and stuff. And anybody who's read Dostoevsky will know the importance that sort of holy men and elders and monks and people of this kind. I mean, they're all different kind of versions.
Brothers Karamazov and all that. I mean,
exactly.
I have to say that the reading about Rasputin, who I didn't know a huge amount about. I mean, really, Boney M was basically the limit of my knowledge. But I do love Dostoevsky, and throughout reading about him, the echoes of Dostoevsky's novels just keep kind of coming. And I guess that, a lot of the themes that Dostoevsky is tackling are obviously part of this kind of the tensions and the social conflicts, religious conflicts, the stresses in Russian life. That part of the reason, obviously, I guess, why Rasputin has this cut through is that he just embodies all these tensions.
He does, doesn't he? So it's about sort of the clash between the urban modernity of St. Petersburg and this kind of, vanishing world of kind of a mystical, rural, peasant Russia. That's all there in Rasputin's story, isn't it? And it's all there in, it's there in Dostoevsky's work in Crime, the picture of St. Petersburg in Crime and Punishment. Once you've read that, it's quite hard to rid yourself of that when you're reading about Rasputin, when he finally goes to the imperial capital. So anyway, he decides he's had this pilgrimage. There's no reason to doubt that this is sincere. I mean, because what's in it for him? He's left his village. He's gone on the pilgrimage. He comes back. He decides he wants to be kind of a holy man.
Well, okay. So I think there's a question here from Thoughtfully Catholic.
Yeah.
Did Rasputin propose anything theologically unorthodox, or was he simply one of the many charismatic figures within the normal framework of orthodoxy? So essentially, was he a heretic?
No, I don't think he was.
Or was he a conventional, was he conventionally religious?
Well, I mean, you and I have both read this book by Douglas Smith, this amazing biography, incredibly detailed biography of Rasputin and Rasputin's life and times. And running through this book is the suspicion that people had, particularly in sort of his rivals within the Orthodox kind of world, but also kind of aristocrats and officials and stuff in St. Petersburg, that he was a sectarian. And they were particularly anxious and worried that he was what's called a klist. So these are kind of flagellants, and these are seen as absolutely beyond the pale. There's about 100,000 of them in Russia at the end of the 19th century. And there's all this talk. He must be a heretic. He must be, a sectarian. He's whipping himself. But this seems to be completely untrue. That actually, theologically, he's pretty standard.
The klisti are supposed to dance and then to end up having kind of vast orgies.
Yes.
And there's that subsection of them that you talked about in our program on eunuchs.
The Skopsi,
that they hack off their testicles or their breasts or whatever. And again, you get this kind of, this obsessional interest where kind of extreme radical desire for God, asceticism, kind of blurs and blends into kind of basically a genital obsession.
Yes, that's you.
Yeah, well, that's why this is why I find this subject so interesting.
But anyway, I don't think this is right with Rasputin. I think Rasputin, because in Douglas Smith's, it's an amazing biography, and in his biography, he has lots of stuff from Rasputin's letters and what people heard him say and so on. And it's all kind of it's all a little bit primary school head teacher. God is love, be in touch with the natural world, be kind. It's absolutely nothing outlandish or that anyone, it's actually quite bland. Do you not think?
Kind of thought for the day.
It is very thought for the day. Rasputin would be an absolute regular. Anyway,
so good.
That path was not open to him.
He officially gets investigated, doesn't he?
He does. Well, there's multiple investigations, and
he gets a kind of clean bit of help.
And
I thought that one of the really interesting comments on him was made in 1918, so after he died and after the Russian Revolution, when no one had any interest in sticking up for him, and somebody passes through his village and they ask about him, and the overwhelming consensus is that he was a kind-hearted person and that he was a man of God, and that. That seems to, I think the evidence that he was essentially an Orthodox figure seems pretty clear to me.
I think that's pretty right. But anyway, no one would care about him if he hadn't made this journey. So he goes to Kazan, which is this kind of Tatar city. And he's a bit of we should paint the context, shouldn't we? Because Russia is in a very bad place when he's on his sort of travels in the late 1890s and early 1900s. It's, very repressive, very divided, in some ways incredibly backward. So, serfdom is within living memory. A lot of people in the countryside living in intense poverty, but at the same time, it is industrializing and urbanizing at a kind of breakneck, a kind of Chinese rate, which causes all kinds of problems of its own. The political system hasn't caught up at all.
Kind of buckling and straining under.
Absolutely, yeah. And all the elite are... They, like a lot of their counterparts elsewhere in Europe, they have become obsessed, but in this incredibly sort of neurotic, morbid way with the occult, with seances, with hypnotism. Everybody believes in what they call dark forces. So it's just a absolute standard belief among the sort of Russian elite that there are conspiracies, often with the Jews playing, or the Freemasons playing key roles that are responsible for all the ills of Russia. And because of that fascination, it means that when Rasputin, he merely has to arrive in a place, it seems, and kind of aristocrats and bigwigs will take him up and be interested in him and sort of show him off as a bit of a grotesque in their salons and stuff.
But I think also, one of the things that I picked up from my admittedly cursory reading of the kind of the climate into which Rasputin enters is that actually the hint of the kind of the sinister, the demonic, intermixed with the saintly is actually incredibly appealing to people. That's kind of a selling point. So there's this terrifyingly kind of clearly charismatic and basically diabolic figure, Alexei, is it Shdetetinin? I hope my pronunciation there is right.
Beautiful Russian.
Yeah. Who is a klist, I think.
Yeah.
And he arrives in St. Petersburg in 1906, which is basically around the same time as Rasputin is turning up. and he is, I mean, he is basically a kind of a drunk, a rogue. He encourages his followers to give him all their money, to give him their wives.
Yes.
And it's an awful thing that he wants his followers to do, which is to give their children over to him, and he will then put them in orphanages.
That's right. Yeah.
So that they will never be able to find them, even if they then repent it. And it's just awful. Yeah. And then he gets put in prison for raping a underage girl. Rather like Stavrogin does in Dostoevsky's The Devils.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all kind of incredibly reminiscent of that. And women who go to see him in prison because they kind of remain obsessed by him. They write about him as being both God and Satan at the same time. And this is all the kind of stuff that will then be said about Rasputin.
Exactly.
But I think that Rasputin is not of that order really at all.
Well, his behaviour is a bit dubious. We'll come to his behaviour, I think. I think you're right that Rasputin is not... There's no reason at this point to believe that he's a fraud or a charlatan or motivated purely by self-interest or by greed or anything like that. He's just found his calling and his path leads him to St. Petersburg. Now, when he gets to St. Petersburg, he's taken up by, or he comes to the attention of these two Montenegrin sisters, aren't they? Called the Black Women or the Black Crows. They have let's call them the Black Crows.
Yeah.
That's never a very appealing, never a very appealing label, I think. So the Black Crows are connected with the royal family. They've married into the imperial family, I think, haven't they? And through them, I think, he gets to meet Nicholas and Alexandra.
There is there's a very high-ranking official kind of archbishop in the Orthodox Church, Theophan.
Oh, yes.
Who's a big fan.
Theophan, yeah. There's also another bishop, isn't there, called Gurmagen, who castrated himself.
Yeah.
So it's always, this is basically the milieu in which Rasputin is moving, a very sort of strange and feverish kind of world. So Nicholas and Alexandra, I mean, we should talk about them a bit, shouldn't we? So Nicholas, born in 1868, Alex, as she's called. So she's Queen Victoria's granddaughter, I think, isn't she? Yeah. And she's terribly serious and earnest, and she's German.
Yeah.
And everybody hates her, basically, because she has that thing that people sometimes have. She's very shy and anxious, and so everyone thinks she's being haughty, and she just never ever adapts, and quite clearly never really understands Russia, and they don't understand her. And basically, she and Nicholas become increasingly isolated. All the other people in the elite despise them.
Yeah.
And they're politically utterly useless and inept.
And also, Alexandra carries haemophilia.
She does. Well, she's had 4 daughters, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia. And she's desperate for a boy, very sort of Henry VIII style thing going on at the court. She's desperate for a boy. And so she's already had one kind of crank, hasn't she? This guy called Monsieur Philippe, who's a
cultist.
He's a butcher's apprentice from Lyon. He's a hypnotist and stuff, isn't he? And he pitches up at the court and they hang around with him. Eventually, everyone persuades them to kick him out. But it just shows that Alex
is very susceptible.
They're both incredibly susceptible.
But even specifically, isn't it the haemophilia of their son when he gets born?
Well, yeah.
So they've had 4 daughters.
Yes, and then Alexei is born in 1904. So he's the heir, and he's exactly. They realise pretty much straight away that he's haemophiliac, and the life expectancy is about 13.
So if you're neurotic, if you're isolated, if you're desperate for a male heir, this is a terrible emotional position to be in.
I mean, she's
so vulnerable to...
Yeah. And what's then worse is that exactly as Rasputin arrives in St. Petersburg, this sort of European-style foggy city on the banks of the Neva in the far northwestern corner of this kind of closed world where everybody is plotting, and there's just this sort of miasma of sort of, I don't know, morbid kind of introspection and stuff. There's been the revolution in 1905. So they've lost a war to the Japanese. Troops have fired on the crowds. There's been rioting and all sorts of disturbances across the country. And Nicholas has been forced to grant effectively a constitutional monarchy, which is the one thing he never wanted to do because his father had told him, that way lies degeneracy. and you must rule as an autocrat and you must never give up any of your authority. So just when they're at their lowest ebb, they meet Rasputin. And I think a lot of it is that they see him as the sort of soul of Russia at a time when they have no friends and they feel they have no political allies and all their family hate them.
It's kind of old Russia, the heart of old Russia. Because
because he's quite conservative, isn't he, politically, Rasputin?
Incredibly.
He sort of says...
he has an absolutely medieval sense of the Tsar.
Exactly.
As the God-appointed father of his
So he
people.
basically says because Alexandra knows that Nicholas has the spine of an amoeba.
Yeah.
And so she's very keen for him to hang around with Rasputin because she thinks Rasputin will sort of, will stiffen him up. Man him up, exactly.
Yeah.
Will man him up. And Rasputin is constantly saying, be strong. The people love the Tsar. They hate the politicians. All this kind of stuff. But I suppose Rasputin also, it's not just what he says, it's how because he is charismatic, isn't he? He clearly
has amazing eyes, doesn't he? I mean, that's the thing everybody goes on about, that they kind of burn and blaze and reach deep into you. And
he has this persona. So he plays the part of the kind of holy man. He has the beard and his sort of peasant, everyone always says he has terrible table manners. He kind of rips apart the food with his hands and all this kind of stuff.
But again, that kind of Byzantine idea that, that the emperor and the peasant, and that in poverty and in kind of the dirt and soil of the peasant lands, their true Christianity is to be found. Their truth is to be found. And Rasputin is a kind of walking embodiment of that idea.
But pretty much straight away, or quite early on, people around the court start saying he's no good. There's something dodgy about him. So you have rumours. So there are these stories that he basically sits on the girls' beds when they're going to bed and stuff.
He's very fond of kissing, isn't he?
He's very fond of kissing. I think he's
quite person.
If we were a Mr. Man, he'd be Mr. Tickle. I mean, he's quite handsy. And I think, maybe we should get into Rasputin. Should we have a break and then come back and talk about Rasputin and women, do you think? Do you think that's a good plan? Okay.
That's an amazing, cliffhanger.
What a cliffhanger.
So, yes. So we'll be back. Obviously, if you've just rushed to take up our exciting special offer, you won't be listening to adverts. But if you haven't, you will be, and we will hear you back after the break. This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money.
Tom, we often talk about how to organise our finances. I'm very conscious that I'm paying for a lot of mad subscriptions. And there's one thing that we've talked about often on this show. It's the thing that we probably hate more than any other, and it's a hidden fee. I would love to get my finances under control. There are all these things piling up on our bank statements, and I think I need to fix this problem. I need to sort this out and to stop this.
I mean, my finances are so chaotic that I need this app.
So I'll tell you what it is. It's called Rocket Money. It's a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps to lower your bills so that you can grow your savings.
With Rocket Money, you can track all of your subscriptions and you can easily cancel within the app with just a few taps, saving you time, avoiding charges. And you can also set budgets and goals and get personalized insights and regular reports to track how you're doing. They will even send you real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, refunds, and even low balances. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/ishistory.
That's rocketmoney.com/ishistory. rocketmoney.com/ishistory.
This episode is brought to you by the Financial Times. I think we both agree, Dominic, that in the clamour of countless voices competing to break the news and telling you the what, the who, and the where on these stories, there's often something missing, isn't there?
There is, Tom, because I think to get a true understanding of any story, you really need to know why. Take FT journalism. It goes deeper, providing the insight, analysis, and perspective to help you see the whole story and truly understand the issues that matter. Why did it happen? Why is it important? And why will it matter? I've got a brilliant example. So they had an article recently, a fascinating article about why populism became popular. And this Financial Times article absolutely delved into that. It was so interesting.
And does it nail it?
Yeah, it nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And it really made me look at populism in a new light.
Well, if you're interested in the why we have good news.
Yes, listeners to The Rest is History can save more than 40% on an annual digital subscription to the Financial Times by visiting ft.com/history. For the why, Financial Times.
Regular listeners to the show should be familiar now with Unheard, unheard.com, which is the online magazine that's very kindly sponsoring the podcast, and for whom both of us, Dominic, have written, have we not?
We have indeed.
They're offering a special deal to Rest is History listeners, 3 months free subscription, which can be cancelled at any time, normally £1 a week. Go to unheard.com/rest to claim it. And this week, they've suggested a couple of articles that listeners might be interested in, prompted by the theme of Rasputin.
Yeah, modern Rasputins.
And the modern Rasputin that they've cited is Dominic Cummings.
Yes, so they've written about him quite a lot on Unheard, they say. So they've got an article, I remember this article actually, by Aris Roussinos. And he basically said that whatever Dominic Cummings' shortcomings, his analysis of the deficiencies of the state was dead right. Cummings has insisted that the British civil service is essentially unreformable, and perhaps within the framework of the inherited structures of the British state, says Mr. Roussinos, he is right. But Tom, not everybody agrees with that, do they?
No. So Freddie Sayers, not persuaded at all.
Oh, my word.
Trying to exercise the persuasive element from government, centralising power in order to bully through the bureaucracy and trying to run the country like a science project isn't such a great alternative.
Is Dominic Cummings Rasputin? I mean, Rasputin never tried to run Russia like a science project.
No. But you know, the idea of the overmighty advisor.
Yeah.
You know, it's all good stuff.
No one accused Dominic Cummings of, what would the analogy be? Sleeping with the late Prince Philip. I mean...
Dominic, that's an absolutely shocking idea that I will now struggle to get out of my mind.
Well, decide for yourself. Go to unheard.com/rest. And now back to the show. Welcome back to The Rest is History. Maybe you've just been listening to Tom Holland selling you mental health treatments. Or maybe you've been to restishistorypod.com to sign up for our special ad-free service. Either way, great delights await as we talk about Rasputin's record with the ladies. Tom, you have a question?
Well, I mean, so this is the big question, and lots of people ask this. We've got one here from Barry Grogan, friend of the show. Was he really the lover of the Russian Queen and Russia's greatest love machine? Well, he wasn't Russia's greatest love machine. We've already dealt with that. But was he a lover of the Russian Queen?
I would say no. Definitely not.
It
would be completely and utterly alien to Alexandra's persona to have, it would run completely counter to everything we know about her. And the very allegation, actually, the weird thing about that Boney M song is what that Boney M song does is it reproduces perfectly these very scatological, kind of almost sort of French Revolution, Marie Antoinette style, kind of pamphlets and cartoons that circulated in the 1910s about Rasputin and Alexandra that actually, if you saw now, you would be horrified by their misogyny and their kind of anti-Semitism and all these kinds of things. And that all of that allegation that she was his lover never ever went away. I mean, there was nothing they could do to dispel it, but it seems to be completely untrue.
The echoes of Marie Antoinette are really fascinating. In fact, Prince Yusupov, the guy who ends up murdering Rasputin, he had Marie Antoinette's furniture in his palace.
Yeah, it is weird.
Accusations against Marie Antoinette were that she was sexually insatiable and that she was a lesbian. And so Alexandra, she has this friend, Anna Vyrubova.
Yeah, Anna Vryobova, I think.
Brilliant.
I don't know whether that's...
Wonderfully said. And everyone said she was conduct a massive fling with Alexandra.
Yes, which is not true.
Actually, they were incredibly pious. And Anna was one of the people who introduced, she was a massive fan of Rasputin. They'd all sit together and pray.
Yeah.
And actually, Alexandra called Anna the cow. which wasn't very...
You wouldn't call somebody that if you were, leaping into bed with them, would you? I mean, it's very unlikely.
I wouldn't have thought so. But Dominic, is it? I mean, again, so all this. Part of the question is how and why do these stories come about? I guess it's essentially the kind of inherent prurience in a pre-revolutionary situation where there's a foreign queen who people don't particularly like, that these stories kind of generate. And if you've got someone like Rasputin, then they really start to swell. And am I not right that there is one incident in particular?
Oh, yes.
Which takes place in 1915.
At the Yar. Which is
at the Yar restaurant in Moscow. So tell us about that.
So this is one thing that a lot of people who'd known very little about Rasputin may vaguely have heard of. So the First World War has started. We'll come back to the First World War later in the episode. But the First World War has started. Rasputin has gone on a trip to Moscow. And he's gone out with some friends, and they've gone to this sort of nightclub restaurant. There's gypsy dancers there, and he dances.
He's
with
a great
them.
dancer.
He loves dancing. He loves
really
dancing.
Good at it.
But why wouldn't he? He's from a peasant village where folk dancing and stuff will be absolutely part of the sort of standard weekly entertainment. So it makes sense that he likes dancing. So anyway, he's there. He supposedly interferes with the gypsy dancers, kind of cuddling them and groping them and stuff. Then he gets drunker and drunker. We know that Rasputin did like a drink. He gets drunker and drunker at the Yar. Eventually he starts shouting about how much, the Empress loves him and all this sort of stuff. And then basically he takes out his penis and starts waving it around and says, this is the altar at which the Empress worships. Through this, I rule Russia, all this kind of thing. And stories about this incident spread pretty quickly and have become absolutely a key part of Rasputin's legend and their love machine kind of reputation.
So are they true?
Well, they're not true. Because this guy, Douglas Smith, who wrote this fantastic biography, went back and looked at all the police files. And he found in the police files that that there was nothing about this incident, that this absolutely hadn't happened. That basically what happened was that the deputy interior minister, who was a man called Junkovsky, that Junkovsky had basically put the local constabulary up to subsequently concocting a report that was fake because he hated Rasputin and he wanted to bring him down. And that's absolutely the story of Rasputin in St. Petersburg, is that he's getting it from everybody, from his religious rivals. So there's a monk called Iliador, who's kind of conspiring against him the whole time, who's a terrible man, I think.
Yes, who gets defrocked and imprisoned in a monastery, and then he escapes dressed as a woman.
He does, and he ends up in America, doesn't he?
Yes.
He ends up in LA or something evenally.
I think he ends up as a kind of doorman.
He dies as a doorman, but before then he's associated with Hollywood in some weird way.
Brilliant.
So there's him, there's other bishops, but there's also lots of people within the kind of bureaucratic machine who resent Rasputin's influence. And the weird thing with Rasputin is that basically everybody projects onto him everything they don't like about the political situation. So people on the left, people on the right, people who are just sort of monarchists.
Well, and internationally as well, isn't there? Because there's a British diplomat who says that he was at the Yar and saw it.
Yeah.
And then it turns out actually he was in Kiev all along.
Yeah. Is that Robert Bruce Lockhart? He says, right, I definitely saw it. Yeah. Saw every minute of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the more kind of prominent that Rasputin becomes, the more he becomes a focus of international as well as internal Russian conspiracy theories and anxieties.
Because it becomes a kind of shorthand, I think, doesn't it, for the kind of bonkersness of pre-revolutionary Russia.
Yeah, I think
that
so.
You can reduce it all to the relationship of these three people, Nicholas Alexandra and Rasputin. And this almost sad thing when you read the stories, their relationship is actually so innocent and almost kind of, it's almost quite childlike, isn't it?
Yeah.
They get together and they pray and they talk, the kids look like Rasputin. Our friend, he's there. I mean, they Nicholas and Alexandra send each other these incredibly childish letters where they call each other kind of lovey and all this kind of stuff. And they say, our friend is coming. I can't wait to see him tomorrow. Isn't it going to be nice? We can talk about God.
We can pray.
And meanwhile, out on the streets, people are distributing these.
Well, I mean, I suppose it's fair to say that according to the police records, he did use prostitutes. He had a kind of earthy approach.
Well, he has this kind of slight harem, doesn't he? He does have a bit of harem.
And he's compared by his admirers to the biblical prophets who all had kind of harems and things.
Well, clearly what happens is that he attracts a lot of kind of I think the word that Douglas Smith uses is emotionally fraught women. So these are kind of often aristocratic women whose husbands are basically, not the most faithful and are away a lot of the time. And these women have too much time on their hands. They can almost, the sort of storm clouds of revolution are kind of gathering overhead. They turn to Rasputin for spiritual sustenance, but they also end up getting something more. And there's a story about, he goes on sort of the equivalent of a kind of school trip back to his village or something, doesn't he? With a load of women, and there's a lot of groping on the train and then jumping into and out of bunks and stuff like this.
And
basically he's not very well behaved. He drinks sometimes, but he's not a satire. He's not,
no.
He's not, he's not I think a rapist. There's claims that he was a rapist, but that seems kind of unlikely. Not enough story. And there's stories about groping, but he's some way short of Harvey Weinstein. I think. Is that fair to say?
That's a commendation. Well, so let's look at the slightly more positive side.
Yeah.
So the key incident that absolutely nails Alexandra's devotion to him is in 1912
at Spala.
Yeah. So they're in a kind of a coach. They're bumping. It's a kind of hunting lodge, isn't it?
Yeah,
they're in a coach.
Poland.
Alexei, her son, is a bit jolted up and down and starts to bleed internally. And
yeah, he's 8, I think, isn't he?
And they all think he's going to die, and the doctors are kind of giving up on him. And Alexandra writes to Rasputin, and Rasputin is in his village in Siberia. And Rasputin writes back, "God has heard your tears and heard your prayers. Do not grieve. The little one will not die. Do not allow the doctors to bother him too much." And these words come true.
Yeah, lo and behold. Now, the interesting thing is why. And as far as I can tell, the latest thinking is that basically, if Rasputin's words have any effect at all, they're just a complete placebo effect. They calm Alexandra. She completely believes in Rasputin. So
and presumably calm Alexei as well, who also
well, because if your mum is, but if you're 8 and you are bleeding internally to death, and your mum is rushing around your bedside, and the doctors are prodding you, and
yeah, so it's that line: don't allow the doctors to bother him.
Yeah, the doctors are making it worse, and then if your mum gets a telegram and says, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be all right," you will relax, and the argument is that Alexei's blood pressure falls a little bit, and he stops bleeding, or
maybe it was a miracle.
Well, maybe it was a miracle. It happens. Clearly, he has an effect on the royal and the imperial family, which is this very emotionally sort of intense household. Clearly, he does calm them down.
Yeah.
They like being with him. He tells them what they want to hear about how the Russian people love them. They talk about God and nature and stuff like that. It's like a massive Sunday school. And that's what makes the story quite tragic in a way. I mean, he is badly behaved outside the palace. But I mean, badly behaved
not terribly.
Yeah, badly behaved is possibly too strong, isn't it? I mean,
and the thing is, I mean, he's not a priest, is he?
No,
he's not a monk. He's
a man of God, which is different.
It's not like he's breaking any vows.
No, he's not exactly. He's got a long-suffering wife back in, wherever it is, Pokrovskoye. But I don't think, you don't get the impression she's terribly bothered.
It's this kind of Byzantine strain within Russia, where it's kind of less significant than it is, say, in a Catholic or even Protestant tradition. So I think, so there's that, and then 1914. So that letter that we opened, the show with, and
he sends that from his sickbed, though, doesn't he?
So we've got a question from the reasonable doctor. Is there any good evidence that he did warn Tsar Nicholas that if Russia went to war against the Central Powers, then Tsardom would collapse? I mean, kind of. I mean,
there absolutely is.
That is kind of what he's saying.
So he'd said that 2 years before in the Balkan Wars. By the way, he'd said don't go to war 2 years earlier. So
he's an anti-war figure.
Yeah. Like a lot of the Russian peasantry, they don't like war generally. When Russia goes to war, the reaction of most of the Russian peasants is horror. Because they think that, well, God, we'll just be slaughtered by our incompetent officers.
And they will. They are.
Yeah, and they are.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is that basically, 9 days, I think, something like 11 days before the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, Rasputin has himself been the victim of an assassination attempt. So he has been stabbed in his home village by a woman called Kionia Guseva, who has no nose. That's
like the person who Nelson gave the snuff box to at the Battle
right,
of the Nile.
exactly. There's a definite theme here. But did you see the photo of her? She looked very unsettling, I thought.
No.
So she has no nose. Her nose has disappeared in some. I don't know whether there's some talk that it might be syphilis or something. She has no nose. She's as mad as a hatter. She has visions of the devil, but she's also been put up to it it seems, by Rasputin's rival Iliador, this monk who ends up fleeing to America. Yeah.
Monk.
So Rasputin has been stabbed. He pulls through, and it's basically amid this. So he's away from Nicholas. Now, there is a slight what if he'd been there in St. Petersburg, could he have stopped Nicholas from going to war? I don't think he could, actually. I think that's his influence, I think, is a bit overstated. Clearly he is influential, but not that influential when all the army commanders are basically saying we have to mobilize, we have to stand by Serbia. But Rasputin definitely says disaster will, don't do this. And Nicholas
does.
Yeah.
So goes to war.
And then Nicholas makes the stupid mistake of saying, I will take supreme command of the army. So he previously had had his, his uncle or something, Grand Duke Nikolai, who's a man who once, did you see this at a dinner party? Grand Duke Nikolai once was asked how good his sword was, and he said, I'll show you. He drew his sword and sliced a borzoi dog down the middle.
You haven't seen The Great, have you?
No.
That's exactly the kind of thing that happens in that.
But he sliced his own dog. I mean, it says like his own beloved pet.
Well, Dominic, if you watch The Great, you will not be surprised that happened.
Well, anyway, this man didn't prove a very good commander of Russia's armies. Nicholas boots him out and says, I'll take command of myself, which is an absolute catastrophe for the monarchy because it means that everything will now be laid at his door. There's no one for him to fire.
And Rasputin and Alexandra both know this. And so that kind of further cements their relationship because they're back in Petersburg.
Yes.
Kind of fretting about this.
Yeah. And Nicholas is away at what's called Stavka, which is in modern day Belarus in a place called Mogilev. So Stavka is the army headquarters. So he's stuck there hundreds of miles away. And that means that all the attention back in Petersburg is now on Alexandra and Rasputin. And everybody says they are running the country. They are selling us to the Germans. And you get this absolute kind of upsurge in 1915, 1916 of incredibly pornographic, aggressive, sort of attacks on Rasputin and Alexandra. They're Russian spies. They're in league with the Jews. All of this kind of stuff, actually. Yeah. Which gives you a sense, I think, reading about Rasputin, you do get a much stronger sense of the climate of the Russian Revolution and the violence of the 1920s and so on. Because you see just how poisonous that atmosphere was in the mid-1910s.
I know. Imagine if they'd had social media. Ooh. Things could have got really bad.
But the weird thing also is Rasputin is quite smart. So Rasputin says the whole time, there's not enough food for the cities. You need to get more food. Did you see these absolutely shambolic letters that he sends to the Minister of Agriculture, Tom?
No, I missed them.
So Rasputin is barely literate. So he sends these notes to the Minister of Agriculture. This is, I think, 1916 or 1915, 1916. Kind, dear apologies, forgive me, much meat is needed. Let Peter eat. Listen, help, Rasputin. Kind, dear apologies for the strange trouble, dear. Let them eat, not starve. They asked to eat, Rasputin. I mean, if you got that and you were the Secretary of State for Agriculture, you'd be motivated to change policy, wouldn't you?
Well, I suppose, yes, or perhaps think we've got to get rid of this guy and murder him, which is in the end of 1916 what happens.
That's what happens, isn't it?
And we get our second cross-dresser of the show.
Oh, God, Prince Yusupov.
Prince Yusupov.
Now, he's an awful man. Isn't he a terrible, terrible man?
Claimed to be descended from the pharaohs and the nephew of the Prophet Muhammad, apparently. Yes. And I'm sorry to say, an Oxford man. A member of the Bullingdon Club.
And a member of the Bullingdon Club. So I think it was Stephen Clark, friend of the show, said, is he the only member of the Bullingdon Club to have murdered somebody?
I don't know.
I'm sure the Bullingdon Club have murdered more people than just Rasputin.
Well, according to the play about them I saw, they did.
Yeah, really.
But that may not be strictly accurate.
So Felix is that's right, I remember that. So Felix is an absolute spoiled brat, isn't he? He's the second son. He's an utter failure. Yes,
his dad bought his mum a mountain for her birthday.
Yeah. He is a man that makes you want to be a Leninist, because he is the sort of embodiment of kind of greedy, grasping,
Privilege.
entitled Russian, elitist privilege. And he decides that he's going to kill Rasputin with a couple of other guys. There's a guy called Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, and a man who's sometimes been described as the first fascist, who's called Vladimir Purishkevich, who's like a ultra-nationalist, anti-Semite, all of these. And bizarrely, they think that by killing Rasputin, they will shore up the monarchy, because they think it's only Rasputin who is damaging the monarchy. So they come up with this scheme, don't they? They get cyanide, they get pistols, and they set a date, the 16th of December, 1916. And do you want to tell the story, Tom? Because it is a good story.
Yes. So Yusupov comes in person to pick Rasputin up from his house, and it's kind of midnight, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Everyone thinks it's a bit weird to be...
Yeah, and they drive back, and Rasputin walks in, and Yankee Doodle Dandy is playing on the...
They've basically set up this room, haven't they? This basement or something.
Yeah. With cakes.
They specially furnished it in a sort of way they think
with cyanide and all kinds of stuff.
And also Madeira, poisoned Madeira.
So it has to be emphasized, this is the story that is told later
by
Yusupov.
We'll come back to that.
But according to him, Rasputin sits down, gobbles down a whole plate of cyanide-laced cakes.
Shed loads of cakes. Unbelievable quantity.
Massive cakes. Huge. Yeah. Then he knocks back an entire bottle of poison Madeira. It has no effect on him.
None whatsoever.
So then they shoot him.
Well, doesn't Yusupov say, have a look at this crucifix? You'd want to look at it because I'm about to shoot you. Then he basically shoots him.
3 times.
I think, does he shoot him 3 times at first, or does he shoot him? Then he goes to his comrades and he says, I've killed Rasputin. Let's go and construct our alibi and stuff. So they drive back
and bury his body.
But they drive back to Rasputin's house, first of all, and one of them walks around in Rasputin's house
to be him.
to fool people. Then they go back to the Moika Palace, which is the place where they've killed him, and to get the body. And Rasputin, Yusupov,
it's like Fatal Attraction.
It is. As Rasputin, as Yusupov is bending down, Rasputin's eyes open and he kind of leaps up. Yusupov says, I have to read this because it is funny. I mean, it's a terrible story. Yusupov says, a wild roar echoed through the vaulted rooms. He rushed at me, trying to get at my throat, and sank his fingers into my shoulder like steel claws. I realized now who Rasputin really was. It was the reincarnation of Satan himself, who held me in his clutches and would never let me go till my dying day. So that really happened.
And what is interesting is that he is writing this against the backdrop of the kind of the first horror films. So Nosferatu and everything. And it's not too hard to see where he's getting the idea for all this kind of imagery.
Yusupov probably himself isn't even writing it. It's a ghostwriter writing it.
Yeah.
And also, isn't it not the case that this is, some scholars have said this is clearly actually a rip-off of a Dostoevsky short story called The Landlady. Yeah. So Yusupov is almost certainly making all this stuff about Rasputin coming back to life. There's even claims...
And Raskolnikov
the cakes,
in Crime and Punishment.
Yeah, with the old lady.
Yes, so Raskolnikov, the murderer of this old moneylender in Crime and Punishment, he lived, supposedly, fictionally, about 3 blocks from where Rasputin is murdered. I mean, it's a kind of incredible synergy there.
It absolutely hangs over it all.
And they take his body, don't they? Suppose, and they dump it in the river. Ice. And one of the favourite stories, even then, he's supposed to have scratched at the ice.
Yeah, but utter balderdash, apparently. So, I mean, basically even the poisoned cakes supposedly aren't true, because Rasputin's daughter said he hated cakes.
He
didn't like, had a sweet tooth at all. He'd never have eaten or played.
And so the context for this is that Yusupov has fled Russia after the revolution. He doesn't have any money.
Yeah, and so he needs to make
it as sensational as possible. Of course.
But we do know, because there was an autopsy. The record of the autopsy is lost, but we do have interviews by the doctor who did the autopsy a year or so later. And he said basically when they pulled Rasputin's body out of the river, because the police find a boot and a sort of trail of blood, they pull Rasputin's body out. He has been shot 3 times. And and that's it. So clearly these guys just basically shot it. And Nicholas and Alexandra are devastated, absolutely devastated. And obviously it doesn't rescue the monarchy, as the assassins hoped, because, I mean, they've only got weeks left before the monarchy's going to fall, and bread riots and St. Petersburg and army mutinies and so on. And they're kind of doomed themselves, aren't they? And there's tragic detail about when they are, so they're killed obviously more than a year later by the Bolsheviks. They basically are taken to Siberia. So they make the reverse journey, the Romanovs, to the one that Rasputin has made. So Nicholas, Alexandra, the four girls, and Alexei. And when they're taken down to a basement, as Rasputin was, to be shot by the Bolsheviks, the girls all have amulets around their necks with Rasputin's picture and a prayer, I think, that he had
topaz
written.
stones, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's kind of sewn in. But as they go down, they go past pornographic graffiti showing Alexandra and
with
Rasputin having sex with Nicholas, kind of.
That's right.
Sitting impotently on the side. So that's the last things that they see. It's a
that is so
story.
sad, actually.
Yeah,
I think it is a sad story. There is something. There is something slightly Reader's Digest about the fate of the Romanovs. You know, if you're a sort of a middle-aged woman in 1950s Tuscaloosa, this is the kind of thing you read about and gets you very worked up. But actually, I think it is a genuinely kind of moving story. I mean, they're completely out of their depth. You know, they're not great people, Alexandra and Nicholas. They're kind of hapless. But being murdered in a basement is probably not the fate you'd have wanted for them. Just like Rasputin being shot and thrown into the river.
Yeah. So I mean, what I have kind of reading about it and the contrast between the incredible stories and what seems to be the truth. I mean, it's quite sobering. You know, when I think about all the stories told about various Roman emperors.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
You really kind of because why? So I guess there's a question here. Carl Johan, Rasputin's penis is famously available to see in a sort of pickled state, but where does the idea for that come from? Are there lots of pickled penises lying around in Russia? Patently European, is the pickled dick real?
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, why? Obviously, it's not his.
No.
It's not
his body
penis.
He wasn't castrated after his death, as some people claim, and his body was burned. So it's not him.
So why are these stories? Why is all the stuff that you get in Boney M's single there? It's the kind of the swirl of factional and religious rivalries where people opposed to him have reasons to come up with these stories. It's I guess the relaxation of censorship after 1905, that people
absolutely.
in newspapers can start writing this stuff. The revolution, kind of, you know, there's absolute free reign to it. There's royalists arguing that you know, he destroyed the monarchy. Without him, it would all have been fine.
And people on the left who see him as symptomatic of the decadence of the Romanov monarchy and
of the church.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, it's also us. I mean, our natural prurients, right? I mean, the fact that we're doing Rasputin as a subject, the fact that so many people sent in questions, it reminds me a tiny bit of we asked Mary Beard about gladiators. You know, isn't it weird that the Romans like gladiators? And she pointed out quite reasonably, we like them too. We don't like to watch them, but we like to talk about them. We all like to go to see the Colosseum. We kind of have our cake and eat it. And in a sense, I think that's what we do with Rasputin. Rasputin also, for Westerners, doesn't he also reinforce a sense of Russia as Eastern?
Those Russians.
Yeah, that's the last line of the song, isn't it? I mean, that's basically this sense that this is what happens in Russia. It's an exotic world of people who castrate themselves and whip themselves and have, you know.
Isn't it also, though, that a lot of the source material for his life it wasn't available during the Soviet Union? So,
but you know the interesting thing, the Soviets were very down on Boney M. So Boney M, when they released music in Russia, were not allowed to include that song.
Why was that?
Because basically the Kremlin didn't like people, you know,
being rude about the Romanovs.
No, I think they thought it probably glamorized the Romanovs and glamorized Rasputin, and that this was basically
I see.
This was an inappropriate way to think about this. What they would have said was a terrible chapter in Russian in Russian history, I guess. Supposedly, even when Boney M played in Poland, the Polish authorities said, don't do Rasputin. It's not, our overlords are not very happy with it.
But now, there are people who do think he was a saint in Russia. Just as there are people who see Nicholas and Alexandra as saints, they see, he's been...
He has been rehabilitated, and I think there are kind of nationalist historians, yes, who say that Rasputin has been framed, actually he never groped women, all of these kinds of things. So they've almost gone to the opposite extreme, and they say he's just been smeared by kind of foreign propaganda and stuff. So it is an extraordinary story, and it actually, Tom, it does make me think about Suetonius and the 12 Caesars. And all those sources for Roman emperors that are wallowing in the same kind of pornographic material.
Iliador's kind of muckraking that he wrote in America and Yusupov's book, you can kind of imagine, if those are the only sources that you have in 2,000 years' time, what would you make of Rasputin? It'd be very difficult it would be impossible to get beneath it. So, really fascinating. So a fascinating story in itself and fascinating historiographically. And with that, I think, rah Rasputin.
Do we want to remind people, Tom, of our fascinating club, our really exciting club?
Yeah, we do.
So it's restishistorypod.com, live stream and the bonus episode and
this exciting Discord chat room.
You can.
We'll put a reading list on that. We'll put books about Rasputin we particularly enjoyed, all that kind of stuff, and you'll get bonus episodes. So if you have further thoughts about this that you'd like us to talk about in next week's episode, put them there, let us know, put it on Twitter, whatever. So lots to look forward to. And our next episode is, I'm delighted to say, on the subject of cricket to mark the start of the Ashes. So we'll see you there on Thursday.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to The Rest is History. For bonus episodes, early access, ad-free listening, and access to our chat community, please sign up at restishistorypod.com. That's restishistorypod.com.